My name is Paige Beal. I'm an associate professor of sports arts and entertainment management at Point Park University in the Rowland School of Business. A long enough title, thank you, but it is rivaled by some of the titles of the people that we have here today. So we're welcoming Jamison Antoine, the Warner Music Group Senior Director, Campaign Strategy and Email Operations. And then David Jacobs, who's Facebook's Global Integrated Consumer Marketing Lead in Instagram, Messenger, and Youth. And then Andi Perelman, Pittsburgh Penguins Senior Director of New Media. I also want to say hello to all of our Point Park University folks, Bob Durda, the chair of the department, who is managing the mute today and keeping us all straight on that, along with Teresa Gregory and Ed Traviseri and Steve Tanzelli and Kendra Ross. And so we'll have a number of folks coming in and on from Point Park. Grace Offerdahl, who's one of our, where are you, Grace? There you are, Offerdahl, who's one of our SAEM students, SAEM entrepreneur, digital marketing expert at this point, will be co-moderating with me. We're doing the SAEM next sessions here because we're trying to connect both professionals and students to what's going on in the business and get us prepared for what we know will be a final opening up. When that happens, we're not so clear, so we're trying to keep abreast of things as they happen. The agenda for today, Grace will be getting into some of the ground rules here, and then we're gonna ask each of the different individuals to introduce themselves, and we're gonna be talking about their perceptions of marketing and how that might have changed and what they're doing to address it. And then we'll open it up for some questions, which Grace will go ahead and oversee when she's doing that. So Grace, you want to let us know what's going on and how this is going to, some of the ground rules for what's going to happen?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Like Paige said, my name is Grace, and I'm the co-moderator today. As you may have noticed, all of you guys are going to be muted. That's just so we can keep the audio clear and make sure that we can hear our panelists clearly. Those are the only people that will be not muted. We do encourage you to introduce yourselves in the chat since you cannot speak verbally. You can drop your name, where you're Zooming from, and also we want this to be as engaging as possible. And we love to see everybody's faces, so if you're comfortable, we do encourage you to turn your camera on as well, since we can't be with each other in person. Also, if you have any questions for any of the panelists throughout this call, drop those into the chat, and at about the 45-minute mark, we will go through those and we'll get to ask your questions. Additionally, this call is being recorded, and it'll be able to be accessed on the SAEM Next page, which is pointpark.edu/SAEM Next, and it'll also be on the SAEM YouTube channel.
Great, and Grace will be shortly commandeering the question element, so just make sure that you put the questions in chat, and she'll make sure that we get those all answered. So to start out, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and to give us a little bit of their bio on what they do, and let's go ahead and do that alphabetically. So Jamison, do you want to start out first?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamison Antoine. I'm the Senior Director of Campaign Strategy and Email Operations at Warner Music Group. I've been at the organization for 4.5 years now. Our team works with the digital marketers across the label group. We work with them on their CRM strategy. We provide them with insights on how their campaigns perform, and then thought leadership and best practices based on those campaigns to help kind of improve like the digital IQ and shared learnings across the business. I've been in the business for 15 years, and I worked in advertising for 5 years, and I went to the University of South Florida in Tampa for my undergrad. And I'm happy to be here.
We are delighted to have you here. Thank you very much. And thanks to Kendra for making that connection. David?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Jacobs. Actually went to Point Park, SAEM graduate of 2009. Steve and Paige were two of my professors. My title at Facebook is really long, but essentially what it means is I'm in the consumer marketing function, specifically focusing on Instagram, Messenger, and Messenger Kids. So if you see any advertising to the world, that is likely from our team. And so we do anything from campaigns that generate awareness about a new product feature, something like Messenger Rooms, which we just launched a campaign on TV not too long ago, all the way to if it's just broad brand awareness. So, you know, what we stand for in the world. So specifically focusing on Instagram, Messenger, and Messenger Kids, which is part of our youth division. Prior to that, I've been a PMM and a brand marketer, and also started my career like Jamison in the advertising agency world back in LA, but happy to be here.
Great to see you. And Andi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andi Perelman, Senior Director of New Media at the Pittsburgh Penguins. I started school at University of Maryland studying government and politics. I never thought I would be working in hockey and in social media. Back then, social media wasn't really a job path at all. So from when I graduated Maryland, I thought maybe I wanted to go to law school, but I realized what I really liked about my classes was the marketing aspects of what I was doing, marketing a candidate, the psychology of what got somebody to vote or feel connected to somebody. Realized that I did not want to be in government at all, and ended up going to grad school at Georgetown, studying sports industry management with a focus specifically on strategic marketing, new media, and communication. That parlayed into a lot of different internships with nonprofits in sports, an ad agency in Pittsburgh, a sports agency in Virginia, kind of all bouncing around all over the place, and just learning as much as I possibly can or possibly could. And then ended up leading to my job at the Penguins. I started at the Penguins January 2014, so 6.5 years later, moved up from coordinator to manager to director to senior director. Our team has grown quite a bit. Social has grown even more. And that's kind of how I got to where I am today. As of now, what we do at the Penguins, my team does and what I work on is our strategy for our social platforms, everything we're putting out on our website, making sure that we're able to help the ticketing department sell tickets, the partnership department integrate partners onto our social, reporting of analytics for anything digital, and then essentially we're the mouthpiece of the organization. So anything that's being out there, anything that's being put out there to the fans is kind of coming through our group.
Thank you very much. So we've got a great group here. One thing I should say as a blanket statement is that the opinions that they express are going to be their individual opinions, and they're not representing the companies that they work for. So just to make sure everybody's on the same page with that. Let's start out with just asking in general, what are the current marketing shifts that you are seeing as a result of what's been going on in the last 3 or 4 months? And let's see, maybe start at the top with Jamison there.
Sure. Well, I think something that we all know is that for in our area, this time of year would normally be when a lot of our artists would be on tour. This is a big opportunity for us. Well, let me start first with the division that I sit in is called Artist Services, and we not only service the labels with on the digital marketing front, but we also look after a lot of the ancillary rights. So the brand licensing, tour merch, e-commerce, building the websites. There's a number of different things that we also do on behalf of the artists. So one of the big areas of our business would be our VIP programs and tours and tour merch. And that's that's obviously taken a hit with COVID, and we're looking at, okay, how do we supplement that revenue, or what can we do differently. And a lot of that is shifted to really doubling down on e-commerce and looking at different ways to offer VIP experiences, virtually, and finding opportunities for our artists to be able to connect with fans, but offering them like a premium experience. So in terms of shifts, like one of the big things has been, it's a delicate line with the artists wanting to make money, but also not wanting to appear as being tone deaf, right? You don't want to come out and knowing that people are losing their jobs, knowing that there's strife. A lot of the artists are very sensitive about sounding too promotional, but then we also know that we do need to do some things to continue to promote the store. So the biggest glaring thing for us in terms of shifts is shifting towards virtual experiences and doubling down even more on our e-commerce marketing.
Thanks. There's a lot going on, and I realize when we're talking about marketing, it's such a broad spectrum. So it's good to hear from the perspective of music what that looks like, and all of our different industries within marketing and sports, arts, and entertainment use social media. So, David, what are your thoughts about that? What do you see as being some of the biggest shifts?
Yeah, no, and playing off Jamison's themes a little bit too. I mean, I think all of us had plans for 2020 and those got derailed pretty quickly. And so I like the joke that we've replanned 2020 about 18 times now, but we really have. So I think a lot of what we had on the product roadmap from a tech perspective, you kind of really live and die by the product you support and the app you support. And so even from a product standpoint, we actually had to go back to the drawing board and say, oh, all these things we were planning to launch actually aren't relevant anymore, or they're relevant, but maybe not the most crucial things that we should be focusing on right now. And so, from a Facebook perspective, we've really been focusing on, and you'll hear leadership talk in the press a lot about remote presence, which is essentially how do we connect people via experiences like this in more authentic and meaningful ways. And then from a marketing perspective, we really had to figure out quickly, what do consumers care about? So we did a lot of research, and what was really interesting about it in terms of trends is consumers still want to hear from brands and from products. They just want to make sure it actually helps them in this situation and that we're authentic in what we're saying and what we're doing. So we're not just launching a bunch of products and asking you to give us money, but we're actually aiding in whatever the issues are at the time, whether that's COVID or something else. And so what's been really great to see is consumers do want to hear from us. Obviously, the channels that we reach them have shifted quite a bit. So from like my planning perspective, frankly, we had some digital out-of-home campaigns that were going to be running, but if people aren't driving or on the roads, then obviously they're not going to see that. So really, it's been kind of shifting our product priorities to align with the product organization and make sure consumers care about it, as well as you just see increased time spent across digital channels. So how do you, reach these consumers in new and different ways, and make sure you let them know that you're there and you're launching things that matter, and you're really backing it up, with meaningful action, and you're being authentic about what you're trying to tell them has kind of been our focus. And I think that's what we're trying to plan for the back half of the year too, is, okay, so we've built a lot of great features. We've connected a lot of people. We've really, even from a product stability standpoint, Messenger Kids in particular was a product that was pretty small, and we just saw an influx and a surge that almost took us offline. So we just wanted to make sure that, even from a stability standpoint, that we were, meeting our consumers where they are and showing up, appropriately. And so I think the back half, you'll see a lot of that as well. I don't think you'll see a ton, at least from my company's standpoint, but I think, consumers are still interested in hearing how brands are showing up, how they're supporting, the movements that are happening right now, and what features can support that, on long term, especially since I don't think this is going away anytime soon.
Yeah, good. And we're seeing a couple of consistency in the themes here. How do you speak to social injustice? What are the words that you use? Being authentic, being genuine. Jamison noted that as well. And the channel shifts that people have been making. Andi, what are your thoughts? How do you look at the shifts and changes that have been happening in marketing?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think a lot of what's going on now is what we've been seeing for a long time. It's just moving way faster. So You know, I think we've been moving to this place where people trust people more than companies. You know, we don't live in a product-centric world. Everything is customer-centric. So how do we take those things that are kind of true and have been working and then just kind of move forward into the future where the future is now and these things are more important than ever? I think transparency is really important. I think intent of what you're putting out there is really important. I think there's always room for error. There's always room for failure, and that's to be expected with the current landscape of things. And, you know, a lot of the times brands don't know where they stand on a lot of these issues. And now more than ever, there's more being expected from brands, you know, how they treat their employees, what's their political point of view, you know, are they credible as a company? What does it say about me if I'm their customer, and am I comfortable with that? And I think those are things and conversations that we're having now more than we've ever had before. You know, if we're saying we stand for something, what are the actions that we're taking? You know, it can't just be words, it needs to be actions. And if we say that we care about equality and we care about diversity, then we need executives that are diverse. You know, we need to kind of get to the point where it's not just saying we care about something, but really doing something. And I think that's what people are looking at, and getting there quickly from a brand point of view, if you're not prepared for that, is hard. I think, you know, Gen Z and millennials are demanding that in a way that probably older generations haven't demanded it in the past. And so I think it's just interesting to look at those marketing trends, which companies really know or knew at the very beginning of all of this, how they would react to these things, and then who else is kind of figuring it out as they go. You look at Nike, you know exactly what they're going to do. It's very clear what their political stance is and how they feel about world issues. And I think, you know, you look at Ben and Jerry's response to the Black Lives Matter movement and how swift and powerful that statement really was. And that's not something that happens overnight. Like, they know who they are as a brand, and understanding who you are as a brand and how you can kind of talk about what's going on in the world is really, really important. I think in hockey, and specifically with the NHL, it's just not as specific. Teams are different by team, teams are different by market, and, you know, we need to figure out how we kind of move as a league and when we kind of split off on our uniquest teams. Because what does it mean to be a Penguins fan? Does it mean that you like Sidney Crosby and you're supporting our team because you're from Pittsburgh? Or are you a fan of our team because of what we stand for? And is that something much bigger than hockey or not? And so I think there's just a lot of those questions that we're facing that we haven't had larger conversations about before. And adaptability to those things is huge. I think that's a big part of what's going on right now. I think that's also just adaptability with technology, right? Like, we're having this conversation on Zoom, and I think our company right now, we have quite a bit of furloughed employees. You know, being able to adapt and learn things on the fly and really get integrated into that technology and go where our fans are is huge right now. So I think I have a lot of thoughts on what's going on in marketing right now, so I could probably go on forever, but I think right now people are looking for the same things they're always looking for: emotion-based storytelling, really genuine, coming from a genuine place, and follow up on your words, and making sure that, you know, you're not just storytelling to storytell, and you're not just trying to get people to purchase, but you're hitting on the right emotions. You're really going back and re-emphasizing what you're saying.
I do think that when you talk about technology, you know, technology has really enabled a number of things that, one, you can't hide, as you said, as a brand. as an artist. And it's enabled people to provide evidence. So I think the one thing I would not, I don't want to say disagree with, but the one thing that I'd say is that the whether it's the boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, I think people have been saying it, but technology has been able to provide the evidence of it in real time, right? So with everything that is going on right now, because I literally have a multimedia tool in my hands at all time. I can capture. You think about it. I can capture something that's going on wrong in real time. I don't have to wait for the news camera to capture what's happening from a police helicopter down to the ground, right? So I think, technology is empowering not only the brands, but the consumers and fans to be able to speak back directly to the brand or to the CEO or to the artist and say, hey, we want to hear from you. And whether that's something as heavy as police brutality to as light as the versus battles that happen on Instagram, where you literally can see your two favorite producers, your two favorite artists, talking to each other, and they're talking to you. I think that's something that is, you talk about a shift. It's made it accessible. It's enabled you to be able to have a voice and also have an audience. And I think it's something that's interesting for both brands and artists to manage through, that you can't hide. You have to have a voice. You have to have something that you want to say, and it can't be just banal, just being showy. You have to have some substance to what you're doing.
Well, and just to add to that, and you can't say nothing at all, right? So it's what you say, but it's what you don't say a lot from a brand perspective as well. I think a lot of people and brands in particular have had issues by not responding to some of these things at all, which I think has only added to the speculation of what do they believe in, what do they stand for, and to the point that I think Andi was making, if people don't know what you stand for, like a Nike, right? I think Nike's pretty clear. But, if Nike didn't have that previous history of standing up for what they believe in and didn't say anything at all, people would be saying, oh, what does Nike stand for? Should I be buying their shoes? And to your point, I think people would pick up the phone and dig a little deeper. So it's almost what you don't say as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think right now too, artists and athletes are brands. So people don't just, expect, like Sidney Crosby's not on social, but people expect to hear from Sidney Crosby because he has a platform. So regardless of if he's on his personal accounts or he's speaking out to the media, people want to hear what people believe in, and if they feel and decide if they feel comfortable still supporting these people, or if they would rather support elsewhere. And not saying something is definitely saying something these days in a way that it probably hasn't been in the past.
You guys are also speaking about technology as being one of the biggest, innovations. And gosh, I can't believe I'm even saying innovation when it comes to technology. But, we have had things like what Jamison was saying with Versus, and we've had things that have emerged that even moved it further forward. And I'm interested to see, and Versus was a great example of this, what you guys think about what is being innovated. What do you think we should be prepared for in the future? What is happening right now that you think is something you should call out, like a Versus?
The big thing for me when Versus is happening, like I have my the hip hop kid in me, like just totally nerded out and geeked out. I was in the comments. I'm like, I love you guys. I was just fanboying out, which was cool. But then the kind of with my business hat on, I was like, wow, you have world-class talent on this platform, or like a D-Nice, like a Babyface. They're on this platform. They have 500,000, 2 or 3 million people, and they're keeping them engaged. And they're really giving us a free performance. They're not getting compensated. We're not paying anything to see it. And for me, I was just like, this is cool, first couple weeks. But then after a while, I was like, it's probably not sustainable, especially if I'm an artist and my livelihood depends on that. So I was really proud of what Erykah Badu did, which was, hey, you know, I could do a free performance, but that doesn't feed my musicians and my team. So I think finding ways to monetize what you're doing without also gouging your fans, right? So I think you could expect to see that, you know, artists, again, they don't want to be tone deaf. They want to share with their audience, but I think they also have to acknowledge that a huge part of their income has just been kind of cut out from under them. And I think passionate fans would want to do what they can to continue to support their faves, right? So I do feel like there's going to be some ways where people monetize without it being egregious, and we find some happy medium where folks could be entertained and it's still accessible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, I was interested to see, like Andy, you were talking about Sydney and people responding or wanting to see from Sydney, or the people that would ordinarily have exposure on other platforms, all of a sudden their music isn't there or they're not live. And so you're finding other workarounds. And, you know, it's interesting to see it's in both music and sports. In about a couple of minutes here, we're going to go ahead and shift to Grace and have her field questions. We've got a couple already coming in. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Shelby. David and Andy, any thoughts that you have before we do that regarding the technology that you think has been in the forefront, and your thoughts about what we can look at for innovation?
Yeah, I think in terms of innovation, I'll speak quickly. I mean, I think from the Instagram perspective, how what we call the creator community showed up was pretty incredible. And honestly, we're all creators. So anyone that posts in their feed or posts a story, we call them a creator, because you're creating original content, right? It is yours. You're showing it to the world. And sure, some of those people are like Selena Gomez, have a platform of a couple of million people versus my 400 followers. And so I think we just saw this spike that we didn't see coming, especially with the live experiences. So what Jamison's kind of talking about, live was a product that existed, but it just exploded after COVID happened. I think people were creating new experiences, and the creativity of how people were showing up was really impressive. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, to Jamison's point, it's not sustainable for these artists, podcasters, whoever it is. But what I found really interesting is a lot of the podcasts and celebrities I follow are actually, kind of creating these Zoom experiences where you pay to join. So essentially they're doing panels of, if you give us $20, and oftentimes it's actually being donated to like a Black Lives Matter or whatnot. They're doing intimate Zoom sessions where, it's like an open conversation, or you're just hanging out. And so I think we'll see a lot of these artists and celebrities and podcasters and creators in general get more creative about how they still support themselves, but also, create these unique and custom experiences. I even think from the Instagram perspective, like we really are thinking through from a product perspective, how do we give creators more tools to make money, but also give more content? Because I think there's even more pressure. We're all stuck at home. So everyone's kind of waiting for the next video or live or, some sort of session to drop. And so I think we will see more and more ways that hopefully can fund this community in a sustainable way, but at the same time, still give you these at-home experiences. But I think you're seeing a lot of consumers, though, really crave those in-person experiences. So I think hopefully once we can open up again, I think we will see a shift back to that. But I think there has been a new avenue created to Jamison's point, you can get these two amazing people to create this rap battle in real time. Like we never thought about that before. I think it's really shown the creativity that we can use these platforms with, but we do have to find a balance of sustainability to, fund their livelihoods.
Yeah, that makes sense. Andy, your thoughts?
I think just looking at what's working in this landscape has been really interesting for us. So when the hockey season stopped due to the pandemic, it was March 12th, I think was the day that we went home from work. And I think we had maybe 6 games left at home in our regular season, or maybe 6 total. It was not a lot. We were right in the point of the season where we were getting ready to get into the playoffs, and one of the most exciting times of the year. And so going into content, you know, are we excited for the playoffs? Are we worried we're not going to have the playoffs? Are we in a place where we're doing kind of like off-season projects and off-season content? And what are our fans going to respond to? There was no baseline knowledge of what was going to work. And so I think every week we've been looking at our numbers and other teams and leagues and seeing like, okay, well, where are we? What's working? And that has changed even week to week. So the things that were working at the beginning were, you know, just the long form, kind of evergreen stuff, getting to know our players, seeing inside view. What does this look like for a player who's at home and how is he keeping active? And then it kind of shifted into, okay, well, we all miss hockey. Now we really like want hockey. And we started doing some throwback games on TV and creating content around that. And now people are unsure again, like, are we really going to have hockey? We know we're making these announcements, but are we really going to start hyping up what we're doing and our opponent yet? And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about is, okay, well, this worked last week. Is it going to work this week? We very rarely hop on social media trends. And lately we've been looking at things and saying, well, hey, these pictures that a lot of sports teams are doing showing all of your rings or all of your jerseys throughout history and asking fans which are your favorite. Is there merit there right now? Because we want people to feel like they can debate something that takes their mind off of other things maybe that are going on, like the pandemic. Is it worth creating a conversation about jersey, something that's not going to change or it's just a historical thing for us? You know, engagement baiting type stuff. Does that make sense right now or not? And I think every week it's been kind of a different situation, and we're kind of just looking at the numbers. And I think that's the key to doing a good job right now, is seeing what's working and trying new things, because we're just in a completely new scenario.
Yeah, adaptability. Everybody's learning to cope. And so I'm gonna move over to Grace and ask Grace to gather all of the different questions and lead us through the latter part of what we're doing here on the panel. Go ahead, Grace.
Okay, I'm going to start with one that is directed to Jamison. It's from Maddie, and she asked, what skills do you think would be especially valuable to learn for a student coming into the music industry during this shift to a virtual experience? Skills.
This is going to sound really mundane, Maddie, but I think there's just some basic things that run across what regardless of any business that you're in. I think your ability to communicate. There's something that I learned later in my career, which I wish I knew a little bit earlier, which is just something called emotional intelligence. Some people just have it. But there's like things you can read on it, and to be just aware of like how you work under pressure situations, how other people react to what you're saying. Like there's a saying that it's not what you said, it's what people heard. So I think there's some core things like your ability to write and communicate effectively, your ability to do things like how to conduct a meeting that's effective. I am a nerd, a hip hop fan and a super nerd. The Harvard Business Review has these little these guides on how to run a meeting. I have this guide called Finance Basics for Managers, for non-finance managers, and that's with the master's degree. I think there's some like basic things on how to run a meeting efficiently. Like I think we've all been in meetings where you're just like, oh my God, when is this gonna end? What is going on? And so I think what you can learn is your ability to manage your emotions and understand how other people's emotions are working and how to work through those is very, very important. Your ability to manage meetings. And I think just keeping up with what's happening politically, socially, with the economy. It's a lot. But all of those things impact the person that's going to listen to the music, that's going to buy that ticket, that's going to do the thing that you ultimately want them to do. And if you're unaware of what's going on, that's when you could come off as tone deaf or not have a diverse viewpoint to challenge your own. So emotional intelligence, learning how to run a meeting, communicating effectively, and staying abreast on what's happening in the world, I think are skills that you could apply in the music industry and or any field you choose to go into. I know you're on mute, but I saw the thank you. All right.
The next question we have is for Andi. It comes from Anne, and she wants to know, how do you market to prospective season ticket holders when you don't know what future seasons are going to look like?
Carefully. I think for us right now, we're not trying to sell season tickets. We're trying to get people who are current season ticket holders to pay what their current season tickets, I guess. So we would rather hold that money. That puts us in a much better place. Then it's easier, so we don't have to collect later. The way we're trying to do that now is 10% rollback discount through the 15th of July. But the way that this all began was us calling our season ticket holders and saying, how are you? How are you doing? Is there anything we can do to help? How's your family? You know, what's going on with your job? And just kind of building a relationship, because our season ticket holders aren't buying tickets just to watch the Penguins. They could buy their tickets to our games on individual game basis and probably save money and go to fewer games. And being a season ticket holder is it's being part of a community. You know, these are people we send Christmas gifts to. You know, we want to create a relationship there. And I think understanding where those people are coming from and why they don't want to pay for tickets right now, or why they are okay paying for tickets right now, it's a very wide range. So I know one of our ticket reps was on the phone with the season ticket holder for 2.5 hours. And we're good with that. Like, that's where we want to be. We want to build that relationship. And you know, some season ticket holders say, hey, it's much better if you hold my money. Like, things are so uncertain right now and I might spend it. Like, you guys hold it. That makes me so much more comfortable. And I collect it from all the guys I share tickets with, or all the people I share tickets with. And it's better if you have it. Other people say, I want to keep my money. You know, I want to invest this in the stock market, or why would I give you my money to hold when I can do something else with it right now? And I think that's legitimate too. And I think we're doing our best to create the most value there. You know, if it's a discount, if it's just saying, hey, like, we're struggling too, so we understand. But I think we just have to be careful with how we're selling right now. And I think our fans just kind of know that we're trying to support them, and we're trying to bring back hockey. And eventually, when it comes to selling new tickets for next season, I think we'll probably just go with that a little bit earlier in the year. So it's uncertain, and only certain people are going to be the kinds of people that would purchase a ticket to a very uncertain situation. But we're going to just have to take it day by day, I think.
We have another question from Shelby, and this one is to anyone. She says, do you think that the unpredictability of this year has forced the marketing industry to test its workers on their ability to adapt to conflict? If so, how has this affected your employees?
Yeah, I can jump in and say, yes, 100%. I don't think anyone else would say no to this question. I think this year has just been super unpredictable. And I think to what both of them have already said in terms of just the marketer's ability has been tested in terms of adaptability and shifting priorities and what matters versus what doesn't. What do you stand for as a brand? I mean, even I was doing some brand work towards the beginning of the year, and we thought we were like solidly in, like, this is what we stand for. This is going to matter to consumers. But honestly, with a pandemic, it was like, actually, this doesn't make as much sense. So maybe we should go back to the drawing board. And so, you know, I think the unpredictability of the year has forced a lot of marketers to just not only adapt, but able to pivot, assess trade-offs. I think really understanding, like, if you're about to say this, what are the potential risks? What are the benefits? You know, if you're going to go to market with this feature, does it matter? Does it not? Is now the right time? I mean, even from a tech perspective, we're literally building campaigns as we're building product features. And so I think in a perfect world, we usually wait for the product feature to get to like a pretty good quality, so then we can start talking about ourselves. But frankly, I've been kind of talking to consumers about product features that are betas and maybe a little more half-baked and buggy. And so I think just from a marketing perspective, it's really test our ability to kind of be a glue of an organization, to kind of bring everyone to the table and really assess those trade-offs, and come up with a plan B and sometimes C, D, and E, just in case, you know, things were to go haywire. Because honestly, I think Andy has said this a few times, it's like day by day. What makes sense today and what we're doing today, honestly, there's a campaign that I've turned on and off at least 4 to 5 times in 2 weeks, just because of like different, you know, does it make sense? Is it tone deaf? Should we be talking about ourselves? Is this the right feature? And, you know, there's a lot of different opinions at the table, but I think what's really great about, you know, being in marketing in general, and I'm sure both Jamison and Andy can speak to this, is you're sometimes a little bit of the focal point of knowing what the consumer wants, doing a lot of research and really talking to a lot of consumers. So having a deep empathy for what they want, as well as being close to like product organizations and leadership to say like, this is what the consumer wants to hear. Here's how we think you should say it. And then building those really flexible plans. But I think, you know, as a marketer, we're always asked to be pretty flexible, but this year has really put it into hyperdrive. And also, I think, you know, the back part of this question was, if so, how has this affected employees? I think honestly, the new normal of working from home, I can speak for myself. It went from 8-hour days to, oh, we're at home, we have nothing better to do. Why not hop on the phone at 9 o'clock and get some more work done, or 11 o'clock at night? And it just got a little unsustainable, even for the teams that I worked with. And so even from an employee standpoint, it's like, how do you move faster? How do you pivot more often? You know, and get these things to market even quicker than you were planning at the beginning of 2020. While at the same time, like, preserving mental health and a work-life balance. And even if all you can do is go outside and walk with a mask on, like, how do you allow employees to do that for an hour a day? And so I think, yeah, we've really kind of been at this, at least the teams I've been on, you know, really at this focal point of like moving quicker, being more adaptable, but at the same time, figuring out a really healthy work-life balance to make it sustainable. Because at least from a Facebook standpoint, we've made some declarations of like, hey, events of 50 or more people as of now, we're not thinking until June 2021. Well, my team is 70 people. So you know, when that news came out, it's like, great, I can't have a team meeting until June 2021 in person. So I think no one knows what's going to happen. So just building in that flexibility to make sure people take vacations. We were talking about it before this call started. You know, a lot of people are maxing out on vacation. So how do you make sure people maintain some sense of normalcy in personal life while we're all kind of cooped up at home?
Yeah, I see Jamison giving the thumbs up. I totally agree. I think that's really important, and you know, you need to build that in for yourself, because sometimes your company, it's not the number one thing they're focused on, right? We're all in crisis mode, so making sure you're talking to your manager, you're making sure that you're taking your time for yourself, and it's hard to do. You know, you get wrapped into what you're doing. I know for me, like, for sure, I'm working late every night, and being at home doesn't mean that I'm, you know, hanging out and not doing things, and just means that I'm working really hard, but I'm also like cooking lunch behind me, and I'm running laundry downstairs, and then I'm working till like 9 p.m. So figuring out how to build that in for yourself, I think is really important. And then I think for us too, it's an interesting dichotomy of, there are a lot of people who are still working at the Penguins, but there are also even more people who have been furloughed. And how do we kind of manage, okay, well, you want to step in and help out the company with something that maybe somebody's not there to do. But but it's kind of hard for those people too. It's hard on both sides. It's people who are feeling like they're not there and they're not contributing and they can't contribute, and then people who are working really, really hard and would love the extra help, but you're kind of doing somebody else's job. And I think that's something we're trying to figure out too, is, you know, how, like I wrote a story on our website and it's not something I usually do. I don't know how our writers feel about that. And that's probably hard for them. And so that's an interesting thing that we're trying to deal with now too, is just being empathetic to everybody's situation, whether you're working or not, and what the uncertainty of that looks like.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, because I 100% agree. And going back to what Jamison said earlier, I think the EQ aspect of a job has really been tested. There's obviously the hard skills. There's, can you do the job? Can you get some of the core critical aspects of the job done? But I think even the EQ aspect of, like, I've had a couple team members start over the last 2 months. So they're virtually onboarding. They haven't met a single person in person. They have a desk they've never seen before. You know, they have a setup that like we built for them and they won't see for the foreseeable future. And so even building those relationships and maintaining those relationships, that is such a critical part, at least where I work, for getting work done, is, you know, knowing the right people to go to, you know, involving the right people for part of the marketing journey and making sure everyone has alignment. And so I think even back to Jamison's point on the EQ of the job, there's like the hard skills, but I think there's a lot of people being tested and starting in new environments, and also at the same time just maintaining those relationships. And frankly, I'm having like one-on-one walks where we just talk on the phone and walk around our neighborhoods. We don't see each other, but that's how we're doing our one-on-ones now and check-ins. And so, you know, even I think we're being tested on how do we rate each other in terms of performance, because you're not seeing these people day in and day out. So you're just kind of trusting that they're doing the work and seeing some output, but not all the output. So I think really focusing on the EQ part of the job is critical during these times as well.
How many more do you think we have time for?
Oh, a couple at least, I think, Grace. Yeah, I saw a couple more on the chat, so
Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, I'll go to, sorry, let me mute myself for.
When I meant take it away, I didn't mean that literally, as in, are they coming to get you, Grace?
Grace, if you're in trouble, let us know, please.
No.
Bob's all over it.
I call. Okay, I have a question from Rhiannon. She asks, does it seem that consumers and fans are reacting well and enjoying the online and virtual experiences? Do you think that they're finding them valuable?
I would say it's kind of changing. So when we did throwback games, our first few games, people were like, oh my gosh, I'm dying for hockey. I need hockey right now. Like, I don't care if it's not live. I don't care if this is from 2009 or 1992, whatever. Like, I want to watch hockey. And I think we saw that people were watching on certain days of the week more than others. We were running it 2 days a week, and one day of the week was better. So then we said, okay, well, let's maybe switch that to the better day and a different day. And then over time, it wasn't about day of the week. It just became about, why are we watching all these old hockey games? You know, it's just not doing it for people anymore. And I think, yeah, we create things that work, but we need to always look at, is this still working? Why is it working? And then kind of adapt. So I think one of the things that we started to do was adding on additional features. We did the first game, and it was pretty much just, here's the straight game. And then we started taking quotes from players that were in that game and embedding those into the broadcast. Then we started doing WebEx with alumni and putting those kind of in like lower boxes on the broadcast. So you're getting a kind of an inside perspective. And I think those things help it. You know, it's not just you're watching the game, like you could on YouTube probably end at any time, but how are we providing additional value? You know, are we providing stats on our accounts? Are we answering fan questions or having an alumni come and do a takeover during the game, or an intermission interview. I know Tyler Kennedy was doing some intermission interviews with one of our radio guys on Instagram Live during the intermissions, and answering fan questions and making it more engageable. So I would just say, yeah, some things are working, but just because something worked once doesn't mean it's going to keep working. And we just need to keep looking at, I'm going to say day by day every time I speak. I think it's just, there's so many things that are going on. And so you just need to make sure you're looking at the numbers and not just assuming something's going to work because it has before.
I don't have much to add to that other than what, I really like what Andy said, is that they have stuff that like you can't just get off of the internet, right? Like you might be able to watch the video, but you don't have access to the player or the alumni. And that's something that's like, all right, that's what makes it unique, and say, I'm going to tune in here versus, yeah, I'm just going to go try and watch 15 videos of the game broken out. So I think that's really cool to be able to do and be able to talk to, somebody you might admire.
We have a question for you, Jamison, from Kendra. She asks, how do you message the need for artists to make a living when consumers assume that everyone with a record deal or a huge social media following is a millionaire? What do you think of the way the Patreon model has crossed over into mainstream, and how does that impact how artists are marketed?
I think so on the latter half, I think, again, going back to technology and these platforms, creating opportunities for artists to have a different type of relationship with the fans is important, where it answers the first part, where they can communicate, hey, this is how I make my living, yes, there's this perception that, well, a record deal equals, multi-millionaire, but one thing that I think has been big and important, especially with the pandemic, is you've seen the artists that have spent time fostering a community where they've spent time talking to their fans or responding to them, or the community is talking to each other, whether that's, the Bayhive or, 21 Pilots fans, or these folks that are just like, it doesn't matter what the artist is doing, they're going to be talking to each other. I think where the artist has fostered a community, they can create empathy for what they have going on. Like, hey guys, like I had to cancel my tour, but I'm going to do this for you to keep the lights on for my band and to bring some sunshine to your day. Like, so I feel like those platforms or this technology has allowed the artists to be able to, in their own words, say, I'm not as rich as you think I am. And I'm doing all right, but here's how you can help out. And here's the value that I'm going to offer in exchange. So it doesn't just feel like, all right, you're not rich, but you're doing a little bit better than I am. It's more of, I'm going to do something for you, and all I want in return is $2 or $3, right? And I think the technology allows you to scale beyond what you could have done if you were playing at Webster Hall, right? Like now 100,000 people can show up for your live stream thing, and they pay $2 or $3 a head, as opposed to, well, only 800 people could have fit in the venue if you did it live. So I think that there's some pluses and minuses. I'm not an artist, so I don't want to speak too out of turn. Kendra, you're the artist, but that's what I think from like a business perspective, is that from managers and artists can speak directly to their fans and communicate and then offer value. And I think it's important for them to offer value and not just show, hey, I need you to give me some money, That's my opinion on that.
Next question is from John, and he asks, if we realize that our organization does not align with our values, how can we step away and contribute somewhere else in a more meaningful way?
think that's definitely going to happen sometimes. I mean, you want to work for a company where you feel like you agree with what they stand for in a broader sense, probably most of the time. But I know, we put out statements and I look at them, I'm like, this isn't the way I would have written this statement. Maybe I agree with parts of it, but not all of it. Our team, we ended up winning and we went to the White House with Obama, and then we won again the next year and Trump was in the White House and we won again. And I think, a lot of employees had feelings about, okay, well, are we comfortable with this? If they ask us to go and cover it, are we going to go? Is it okay to say no? And I think that's an interesting question, because things will definitely pop up, especially in the current climate, that you're going to have to say, am I comfortable working here? Am I comfortable signing, co-signing that in some ways? And then when can you kind of be yourself and put out your own opinions? And I think it's just good to have an understanding of, when you're working for a company, how much of your opinions are they comfortable with you sharing? I know on my Twitter account says tweets are my own, and the Penguins have me put that there because it's important that people don't think that I'm speaking for the Penguins. And I think, there's just so many things you can do on your own, but understanding where your company stands and what they're comfortable with you doing. And if it's not enough for you, then you shouldn't be working there. So I would say, getting involved wherever you can, but knowing before you take a job, what does your company stand for? What are they comfortable with you speaking out about? And is this a place where you feel comfortable being yourself and speaking out about the things that you care about?
Yeah. And I would just plus one to all of that. I would also say, I've always worked at companies that, to Andy's point, even if you don't agree with everything that they say, they at least create a forum for you to speak up and have your opinion heard. And I would say that's really important as well. So if you haven't had that dialogue with your employer, I know it's easier said than done, right? And having it in a proactive way. But I think a lot of companies and brands are being asked to, kind of step up and listen to their employees more than they probably have in the past. And so working for a company that allows you to voice your opinion or allows you to say, hey, I don't think that was the best decision. Can we revisit it? I think is super critical, because at least if you don't agree with everything, at least you can feel heard. And maybe that doesn't resolve it 100%, but at least that's a little bit of half the battle. And I've always really appreciated that in companies that I work for. Prior to Facebook, I worked at Intuit, which was also both companies have weekly forums where you can ask the CEO questions direct. And sometimes they're really tough questions. And I think Mark has actually live streamed some of those. So you can actually go back through the Facebook archives and see some of those questions. But, sometimes they're really tough. And sometimes, they're just baseline, hey, we want to talk about benefits or we want to talk about these things. But I think that dialogue is really important. And I think as we are adapting to this new world and changing social norms and whatnot, I think it's really important that employers allow you to speak up and listen and then have a healthy dialogue. So I would encourage you to do that. And if there's still misalignment, then I think to your point, is there something on the side that you can do or another company that might better align with your skill set? I can only speak to San Francisco. I'm starting to see there's a lot of employees that got laid off and furloughed. So I want to underscore that, but I also am seeing an uptick in marketing jobs again. And I think that's because I think companies are just refocusing where they're hiring. So hopefully that's the same wherever you are. And you can find a new opportunity if, that doesn't work out.
I think you can, again, use technology. If there's something that your company doesn't support, there's nothing that I think stops you from using GoFundMe to raise money, right? Like people need, time, talent, or treasure, right? Like the organizations need money. Organizations need people who understand marketing, or people who know how to design a flyer, right? So you can, step away and say, hey, I'm going to, maybe I'm going to raise money for a local charity. I'm going to go volunteer my actual time. And it's not something that, maybe you don't need to post it all over social media. You don't need to. So I think those are things that you can do that, like, here's my one way of contributing. I always think about, you always hear about Martin Luther King and the March on Washington. you don't really hear about Bayard Rustin, who was the person who actually organized the march and helped put it together, but he's key and critical to that whole event happening. So I think those are little things that you can do, is that if you're really good at organizing things, if you're really good at designing or whatever it is, I think you can step away, find a cause or find something that you believe in and contribute in your own way. And that, I think that counts, because somebody's really going to appreciate you helping them design that flyer, something that's very easy for you to do that just might be incredibly overwhelming to someone else, that you could come in and say, I can do this little part and that's going to make a difference. So I think those are things you can do stepping away from your organization, that you can do discreetly if you're concerned about, getting in trouble or that type of thing, or, you could promote outwardly. But those are the things I think you can do, is donate your time, your talent, or your treasure, as much of it as you can.
Thank you for the answers.
Well, thanks, everybody. We are actually at the end of the official panel time, and I don't want to overkeep Jamison, David, and Andy, and thank you very, very much for spending this time with us. And I'll invite you to join us with students. We usually stay on for another 10 minutes or so as we, connect with the students and try to make sure that we're, getting some feedback on this and what their life is like right now. Thank you, Grace. Great job in asking those questions. Next session, I don't think I see Jason on still, but Jason Varnish is going to be hosting a session on event tech, so technology that's been evolving. And so the CVent, I know he's got one of our SAM alumni for that, as well as Brian Arnone for the from ShowClicks, and so a couple of other people there. So I'll invite you to look for that. This will be available on the SAM Next page on our regular web page, pointpark.edu, as well as on the SAM YouTube page. And, want to thank everybody for really your questions. And if you'd like to hang on, please do so. Bye, David.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Jamison. Thank you, David.